Your host and all of us here at the Whiskey Party Kit, I want to welcome you to tonight's party. I'm going to take about 5 minutes and give a brief explanation of whiskey and then demonstrate the two-step tasting process that we recommend so that you can get the most out of your whiskey tasting experience. So what is whiskey? It's a distilled beverage that's made from grains and aged in oak barrels. The grains used are malted barley, unmalted barley, corn, rye, and then sometimes to a lesser extent, wheat. The process is the grains are mashed, they're combined with hot water. After that, yeast is added. The yeast feeds on the sugars in the grains and produces alcohol. That mixture is then run through a still where the water is evaporated and the alcohol is concentrated. And then the master distiller takes the best portion of that, puts it into oak barrels and ages it anywhere from 2 to 20 or more years until it's ready to be bottled and then sold. So what's the difference between Scotch and whiskey and then bourbon and whiskey? Well, the answer is that they're both whiskeys, they just come from different countries. There are 4 main whiskey producing countries: Scotland, Ireland, the United States, and Canada. And subtle differences in the grains that they use, the water that's available, the types of oak barrels that are used, and then even in the drying process of some of the grains can have tremendous effects on the characteristics in the finished whiskey. So Scotch is simply short for Scotch whiskey, and bourbon is another term for American whiskey. Okay, so that's very basic explanation of whiskey, enough to get you started for your party. If you're curious to know more, there's more information in your What is Whiskey booklets that are available from your host. There's also more information available on the website at whiskeykit.com. Okay, let me demonstrate the two-step tasting process, and then you can get on with your party. Now, I have 2 different glasses here, a larger one and then a smaller one. Now, when you're doing the tasting, you don't need a bigger glass. You're only going to do little small amounts. So we'll use the smaller glass for right now, and we're going to taste a little bit of Knob Creek here, a small batch bourbon, and we're just going to pour a little bit in here up to that line that just happens to be part of the glass itself. Have a look at the color. I'll swirl it around, get a little air in there, and then I'm going to smell it. So there's some and vanilla notes in there, and a little bit of oakiness. I'm going to take a small sip, and I'm just going to hold it in my mouth a little bit and maybe chew it a little, kind of help get some air in there, and just sort of try and pay attention to the flavors that kind of go through my mouth. And you should get a couple of different flavors, something up front, a little along the sides, and then a different flavor kind of as it goes back through the back of your mouth. Okay, so there's some distinct brown sugar flavors up front on that, a brown sugar sweetness. It's got, I'd say kind of a medium body to it, a little bit of bite along the edges, and then as it goes down, it has kind of an espresso bean, kind of a sweetened espresso flavor as it goes down. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to look and see how much is left in there. And then I'm going to add some cold water. We're not going to add any ice during the tasting because then that changes everything. So we have some ice water here, so the water's nice and cold. And we're going to add about as much water as whiskey is left in the glass so that we end up with a 50-50 blend. So we'll add just a little bit here, a hair more. Okay, that's probably a little too much. Okay, so smell it again. Now see, it's a little more subtle, it's more like a vanilla scented candle now than it is kind of a vanilla aromas. And then there's a little bit of muskiness to it now with the water. And then we'll taste it. And the reason that there's a 2-step tasting process is because sometimes it'll make a big difference in the textures or the flavors that come out in the whiskey. Sometimes it's just different. Sometimes it makes it better, and sometimes it makes it worse. There are some whiskeys where it tastes great up front. You put the water, and it's like, it kills it. Others might be too much up front or without anything. You dilute them a little bit and it mellows it out, changes the texture, and makes it very nice. There's no right or wrong to any of this. As you go through the night's tasting and you compare what you're tasting to the notes on the card, there's no right or wrong to it. That's just kind of a guide to get you started. If you smell or taste something different, that's okay. You taste what you taste. The idea is to enjoy yourself and have a good experience, not to be right or wrong about anything. Now see, that's more of a mapley syrup kind of sweetness. It's a little lighter than that distinct brown sugar the first time, but the texture is nice and it's a little creamier. It's more mellow. There's really hardly any bite there when it's mixed with water. A little bit of kind of some orange cream notes along the side, and then kind of a nice coffee with cream flavor kind of lingering there on the finish. So that's it. That's kind of the process. Again, if you're interested in more information or you want to have a party of your own and pick up a whiskey kit at some point, please visit us online at whiskeykit.com. And other than that, have a great evening and please drive responsibly.